Hi guys, KP this side. Hope all of you are doing good. This is another video I'm doing on the questions and answers session. Third video basically we are doing, and I got lots of questions this time. So I'll try to answer as many as possible. Won't be able to cover all the questions in one video because I don't want to rush through it. Want to make you understand a lot of concepts. So I have first taken up those kind of questions which are not stock specific. Some stock specific questions also I've taken where I found that stocks are good and I really want to share information with you. Most of the questions that I've taken up today are the conceptual questions that have been thrown to me. So we will start with the question number 1, that is from Chirag. Chirag wants me to tell what is the correct interpretation for book value. I've been covering book value in most of my stock analysis, so he wants me to tell what exactly is book value and how to interpret it. So book value basically, Chirag, is the net worth of the company divided by number of shares. When I say net worth, I am talking about the share capital of the company and its reserves. So if you go to the balance sheet, these are the first two numbers that you will find: the share capital of the company and its reserves and surplus. These two numbers taken together, when divided by the number of shares outstanding, you will get the book value per share. So book value by itself may not be a great number to give you any idea. What we are more interested in is the price to book value ratio of the company. So for me, any company having a price to book value ratio less than 3 is good. But even if you're looking at the price to book value, or we're looking at some other price multiple like PE ratio, I personally suggest that we should compare it with the industry average PE ratio and the price to book value ratio to get a better understanding. So when I say price to book value is 3 times, what do I mean by that? It means for every 1 rupee of book value, how much I have to pay for the share. Book value per share is, let's say, 50. Book value per share is 50 and the stock is right now trading at 150. It means book value per share is 50 and the price is 150. So if I do price to book value, it is the current market price divided by the book value, which is 150 divided by 50. So you get price to book value ratio of 3 times. Now, whether this price to book value ratio is on a higher side or on a lower side, the best way to understand that is by comparing it with another company belonging to the same industry, or by comparing it with the average industry ratio itself. So obviously, if I'm finding out price to book value for the auto stock, let's say for Maruti, I would prefer to compare it with maybe Eicher Motor or maybe Bajaj Auto or maybe any other company from the auto sector. Or I can also find out the average industry price to book value ratio. I hope I answered your question. Second question is by Mr. Lakhan, who wants to know what are your thoughts on the mutual fund investments? Are they reliable? There are 2 questions Lakhan has asked. The first question is my thoughts on mutual fund investments. Now Lakhan, I feel as an equity advisor, or maybe because I am a chartered accountant, I am a qualified person. So I personally do not believe in investing through mutual funds. One big reason for that is when I have invested directly in equity, I have more control on my funds. I exactly know how I am planning to allocate my money in different stocks because I have my own preferences. Whereas when you give your money to mutual funds, you have lost control of your money. Obviously, you have given your money to experts, but you have lost control of your money because you don't exactly know how they are going to allocate your money in different equity shares. Now, when I talk about mutual funds, there are 3 different types of mutual funds. Primarily, one is the equity oriented mutual fund, one is the debt oriented mutual fund, and one is a hybrid fund. As the name suggests, equity funds will invest your money primarily in equity. Again, within equity mutual funds, you have various classes. Some funds will focus only on large cap, some will focus on mid cap, some will focus on small cap. Again, there can be sector wise classification. Some funds will invest mainly in banking and financial sectors. Some will invest mainly in IT sector stocks. So like that, there are lots of classifications. Okay, so personally what I suggest is, as far as equity is concerned, I feel it's better if you invest your money directly. Yes, if I really want to diversify my money, if I want to give my money to mutual funds, probably I would like to take a mutual fund, mainly the debt oriented funds, where they are going to put my money in debt securities. The advantage of debt securities is that you get less return over there, but you have fixed return. So the amount of risk which you're running is less. So if it is investing in debt securities, then for me personally, I don't have great knowledge about debt funds, to be very honest. So I prefer, in that case, if I really want to hedge my portfolio, I don't want to take too much exposure in equity, then a part of my savings, I would like to invest it in debt mutual funds, or maybe a hybrid fund. What is a hybrid fund? Hybrid fund is a mix of debt and equity. Some part of your money is invested in debt securities and the balance is invested in equity. I hope I answered it. Now, is there any specific reason why you don't like mutual funds? One reason I've already given you is that you lose control of the money. You don't exactly know how they're going to allocate the money. The second important reason is there are lots of conditions attached to mutual fund investments. Like they will most of the times have some lock-in period. Plus there are a lot of hidden charges in mutual funds. There are entry loads, there are exit loads. So when you buy a mutual fund, you always see the relationship manager who is going to come to your home to explain you the product. Obviously they are only going to talk good things to you, but it's very important when you buy a fund, when you plan to invest in a fund, when you plan to buy units of a particular fund, it's very important that you get a complete and thorough understanding of what are their charges, what are the covenants attached, is there any lock-in period, are there any hidden charges like AMC, annual maintenance charges or something like that. So you need to have a clear-cut idea about what are the hidden costs involved in that. After that only you should take a decision of whether you want to invest through them. Overall, if you don't have any knowledge and you don't want to take services of an investment advisor because you don't want to trust somebody, then it's good to go through mutual funds. But personally, I don't believe in mutual funds. I want to do my investments by myself. His second question is, how about investing in Bharti Airtel? Okay, that's a very good question. Right now on my radar, Bharti Airtel is one of the best large cap stocks available to invest. It's a kind of script where if you put your money, then you know your money is very, very safe. Among the large cap stocks, when most of the stocks have almost done a good revival from its 52-week low, which it hit in the month of March, Bharti Airtel is still one stock which has a lot of upside potential left. If I give you the numbers, Friday closing of Bharti Airtel was around 523. It has done a 52-week low of 325 and a high of 612. So if you see, a lot of things are there. A lot of things were there which were dragging the price of Bharti Airtel down. The Supreme Court verdict was supposed to come on AGR dues. Then there was a talks going on if they would have to pay the dues for Aircel and Videocon in this Supreme Court verdict. But best part is most of the things have gone in favor of these telecommunication companies. They were asking for a total duration of 20 years to clear their AGR dues. They have not got 20 years, but they have got 10 years time to pay their AGR dues, and they don't have to pay for the other companies from which they have purchased the spectrum. Okay, so I can make a complete video on Bharti Airtel itself doing the analysis of the stock, which probably I would do in a couple of weeks time. But for now, I think the kind of liability they have, which they have to pay in next 10 years time, they have around 3,500 to 4,000 crores payable every year, assuming an interest rate of 8%, which is very easy for them to pay. Their plans are to go for a tariff hike. Once they do that, their average revenue per user will also go up. As a result of that, they will be in a very, very comfortable position to pay off their debt. The dues, AGR dues. So company looks in a very comfortable position to pay off their dues. In the telecommunication sector, they are one of the most promising companies. They are the ones who are competing very well with Reliance Jio. This year itself, they have done ARPU, that is average revenue per user, of 157 as against 129, with the company deciding to increase the tariff, going for a tariff hike. Their ARPU is only going to go up. So already a lot of provisioning has been done for the AGR dues, and with Supreme Court verdict being a mix of favorable and unfavorable, especially for Bharti Airtel, things look very good from here on. So if I have to invest in Bharti Airtel, I will not give a second thought to it. In fact, to be very honest, we have most of our clients invested in Bharti Airtel, and I'm very confident about it. What is the minimum target I look at? At at least I feel 600, 610 looks very good on the paper, and from there on, if you can hold it for long term, 700 looks easy target for Bharti Airtel from its current price of 523. I hope I answered you, man. Next is Mr. Dhaval, who wants to know what are the pros and cons of option selling and how do I compare it with futures. Okay, Dhaval, you have also got two questions. Let me first address this particular question. He's asking me, is it better to go for option selling, or on the contrary, we should go for futures? Now, assuming that you people have basic understanding of options and futures, option selling requires margin, and so does the future selling, that is going short on futures. They also require margin. Now the thing is, when you are doing options, you are heavily dependent on the change in premium. How this premium will change, that will decide your profitability or your losses. Whereas on the other hand, when you look at futures, futures prices almost change in the same proportion in which the cash market prices will change. So when you go for selling of options, okay, not buying of options require you to only pay the premium amount, and that premium amount is very limited, like 15,000, 20,000 is all that you need to pay. But when you go for selling of options, you have to pay good, decent margin. That margin can be anywhere between 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakhs. So I personally feel, if you are selling options, be it a call option or a put option, obviously you are bullish or bearish depending on which you are taking the call selling position or a put selling position. If you are selling a call, it means you are bearish. If you are selling a put, it means you are bullish. I personally feel if you have enough margin to pay for selling of options, then it's any day better that you go for the future exposure, because more or less my margin requirements are same. So it's any day better, rather than being dependent on the premium, you are only directly dealing in the cash market prices, because as the cash market prices will change, so does the future price change. So it's any day better that you go for exposure in futures, especially when the margin requirements are same. The biggest advantage I feel in futures is there is no time decay of premium. So the advantage in that case is that is not something that happens in case of futures. So with futures, the biggest advantage is, like I give you one example, since I was talking about Airtel. So continuing with my Airtel example, last month I was very bullish on Airtel, and I purchased a long future on Airtel. Last month, Airtel didn't perform well because of this deferment of the Supreme Court verdict. So I was suffering a loss of around 45,000 on that. But I was very confident about my position in Airtel. So what happened? The August series, I had a loss. So what I did, I squared off my position in the August series with a loss of 45,000. But I always have this option of going for a rollover of the contract. So what I did, I purchased a September contract. The moment this verdict came of the Supreme Court, which as I told you was looking good for Bharti Airtel, as a result of that, the stock went up to 560 odd bucks, and as a result of that, I made good money in Airtel future. So with futures, even if you suffer a loss, but if you're still confident about your position, then in that case you can always roll it over, and you don't have this tension in your mind where you're fighting against time. So you can always roll over your position, and you can cover up for your losses which you suffered in the previous month exposure. I hope I answered that. Second question he's asking is, what do I recommend? Whether to open a Demat account with companies like Motilal Oswal, Angel Broking or Sharekhan, or we can also go for other brokerage houses like Zerodha stocks. I feel the reason why you're asking this question is because somehow some people feel there is less reliability as far as these new entrants are concerned, like Zerodha or the up stocks, and you feel, what if they turn out to be a company like Karvy? So guys, you need to understand, when you apply for a license as a brokerage house which will allow you to do trading through their platform, there are a lot of regulations which SEBI has created, and you have to abide by these regulations, compliances. There are thousands of them, and only then you get this license to operate as a brokerage house. So you need not worry when you're putting your money into any of these brokerage houses. Number one. Number two, chances of them coming up with a bankruptcy is very, very minimal. So you need not worry about that. Okay. And the third thing is, what is your reason for going to Zerodha? If your reason for going to Zerodha is because of the fact that they don't charge brokerage, or they're charging you very attractive rates of brokerage, whereas Motilal Oswal Angel Broking on the other hand is charging you more brokerage, then you need to be better at your bargaining power. Even if you go for angel broking or you go for Motilal Oswal. A lot of my clients have their accounts with these companies, and if you know how to bargain with them, even over there on your delivery you can get a brokerage rate like 0.1% or 0.15%, which is still a very promising rate. So if you feel more content going with these classified companies who are more renowned in the industry, you can still go with them, but make sure that you haggle with them on the brokerage rates that you're paying, because people feel that this brokerage is very small, but then it all boils down to the turnover of your business transactions. If you're doing too many transactions, then this brokerage cost can sum up to be a very hefty cost for you. So wherever you open your account, does not matter, you got to haggle with them on the brokerage that you're paying. Anything close to 0.1% or 0.15% on delivery is good on one side. So if I'm doing one complete transaction of buying and selling, maybe anything close to 0.3% looks decent. If you can haggle for something lesser than that, then it's good. But coming back to the point, is Zerodha or Upstox safe? Answer is they are 100% safe. In fact, I personally am using Zerodha application on different Demat accounts, and I'm more than happy with how it is working. They are flawless. They are doing really good. I hope I answered you, man. The next question is from Mr. Nikunj, who is asking my views on two different stocks. One is Symphony, which is a company dealing in consumer goods, and one is JK Lakshmi Cement. Nikunj, first of all, these two are among the favorite stocks that I personally track on a regular basis. Symphony right now is trading around 858, has done a 52-week low of 690 and a 52-week high of 1409. This is among those very limited stocks who are having very good quality but are still trading cheap. In fact, Symphony has a discount to 52-week high of 50%. That is a crazy number. Obviously, because of lockdown, their June numbers were not that great. If you see over here, I have seen the stock consolidating in this 840, 850, 860, 870 range for a long time now, and anytime stock can jump from these levels at any point of time. You take my word, even if somebody is looking at doing fresh investment in Symphony at the current market price of 848, you can very much easily buy this stock at 848 and wait for a very, very comfortable target of 925, 930. Mark my words, guys, because when this is done, I will be sharing a screenshot of this video and posting it over there. All these are general recommendations I am giving, so don't tell me later on that you are not giving any free advices. Now I am giving a lot of free advices. In fact, in my last video on question and answer, so many stocks were recommended and most of them have already hit their targets, and I've got lots of messages with people saying they have made a lot of money. So I have spoken about PowerMac in my last video. I've spoken about Z Entertainment in my last video. I have spoken about DMart in my last video. And you see the video, you see the prices at which these stocks were strongly recommended by me, and you see the current market prices, and they have done a lot of upside in no time. So for me, Symphony at 848 is a very good stock. So I'm thankful to Nikunj for asking me this question. I feel Symphony at 848 is a very good stock. If you want to do fresh investments in it, you definitely can do it. If you are having it and you plan to hold on to it, definitely you should hold it for the first target of 925, 930. If it can break that resistance of 925, 930, next target will be around 990 for this stock. If I give you a few figures, why is stock under pressure? Because their June 20 numbers compared to June 19 were not that great. They somehow managed to have a net profit in positive. They had a net profit of 2 crores as against 33 crores in 2019. But if you compare their 19 and 20 numbers, for March 2019, their net profit was 91 crores, whereas March 20, they have done 182 crores of profits. It's a stupendous return the company has given. Their products are well known in the industry. They're dealing in consumer goods, like I told you, and the company seems to be well priced. Their PE ratio is 39 times. Price you're paying for every 1 rupee of earning is 39 times, whereas the industry average PE ratio is 55 times. More importantly, in this kind of a volatility that we are experiencing in the market, we want to have stocks like Bharti Airtel, Symphony, where we have a very limited downside, but upside potential is very high. The stock has a delivery of close to 54%, which makes us very clear that this stock is not available in options and futures, as a result of which the stock doesn't suffer a lot of volatility, as a result of which you always know that you are not having a high beta stock, and in this kind of a volatile market, we do prefer less volatile stocks. So Symphony is a great stock. Second stock he's asking about is JK Lakshmi Cement. Again, as a disclaimer, I have taken JK Lakshmi in most of my clients' accounts, and even I am holding on to JK Lakshmi right now. I have a good quantity of it. JK Lakshmi at its current price of 263. What is the easy and smooth sailing target looking for JK Lakshmi Cement? I would say 300 is very easy target in no time. Once you see markets going up again from here, and JK Lakshmi should get its target done. You would have seen in last couple of months the cement sector stocks have done pretty well. This stock is still losing on to the upside movement, and I feel this can come at any point of time. Having a price to book value of just 1.8 times, the stock looks very attractive at its current market price. It has a P ratio of 12.5 times, whereas the industry average P ratio is 25 times. So as far as P ratio is concerned, the stock looks very, very cheap. June 20, they have done 50 crores of net profit, as against June 19, where they have done 53 crores of net profit. So even during the lockdown period, the company has been able to manage doing pretty good results. But the stock, as I told you, has still not experienced any upside. So you can definitely buy JK Lakshmi Cement at its current price of 263 with a minimum target of 300. If you can hold on to the stock for a longer period of time, 330, 335 looks very, very comfortable with the stock. Okay, next question is by Mr. Karan, who is asking me another good question, that FMCG stocks have done pretty well. They have gone up at a decent pace. Then why is HUL not going up? Or he's asking me about my plans on HUL, about my belief on HUL upside movement. So again, for my clients in options, we have a HUL 2200 call open right now, and we have done it as a positional call. Yes, on Thursday, I believe the stock has shown a lot of upside momentum. The stock was trading close to 2185, but now again the stock is available at 2124. It has done a 52-week high of 2614, which means the stock is currently available at a 20% discount. HUL fundamentally is a very good stock in FMCG sector. I don't think I need to tell you about the reputation of the company. The company is well known in the FMCG sector. They have done decent profits in June 2020. I believe you know this, because these FMCG products are required on daily basis. So even during lockdown, FMCG, apart from pharma, is one sector which was not impacted much, and that is the reason stocks like Britannia, Dabur have done a lot of upside. The only two stocks lacking, which are reputation wise, brand wise, very solid, very promising, but they still lack the upside momentum. One is HUL, one is ITC. For people who want to buy a small value share, ITC looks very good at its current price. I didn't see the last price, but it is somewhere between 185 to 190. I feel it's a very good bet. In fact, I was reading the newspaper today, and the company is planning to go for a buyback, or they're going to make a special dividend payment. So for me, ITC is a great stock. If you're looking for a low value stock, if you can buy a high value stock, then in that case I personally would go for HUL. I won't prefer Britannia at this point of time, or Dabur for that matter, or Nestle for that matter, given the price range. The stocks which are lacking the upside as of now are HUL and ITC, and I see good potential in both these stocks in near term. So definitely we can consider buying them at their current market price. Beta for HUL is just 0.67 times, which means it is a defensive stock. There is not a lot of volatility in the stock. So again, from the current market price of 2124, the stock doesn't seem to be going much down. But on the upside, the easy target that you can look for is 2225, which is 100 rupees up from its current price. That is the least I see can happen very quickly from its current level. In fact, if you compare the 19 and 20, March 19 and March 20 annual results, in 2019, they have done a total profit of 6,060 crores. Just look at their profit numbers, guys. It's a healthy amount of profits they have done. Whereas in March 2020, they have done 6,764 crores of net profit. Stock is really good. There is nothing wrong with this stock. Yes, the management guidance this time was not great because of the overall consumption going down in the economy. But overall, you need to understand, just like pharma business is not getting much impacted by lockdowns, IT business is not getting much impacted by lockdowns, so will be the situation of FMCG sector. And with business looking at revival from here, with the businesses looking at a U-turn from here, where economic situations are going to only improve from this point of time, HUL will be one of the favorite picks at this point of time, keeping safety in mind. Question number 6 is from Mr. Prashant, who is asking me how to decide when to exit the stocks. That is a good question. Again, Prashant, I think this is to one is its own. Everybody have to decide based on the return that they're looking from a particular script, or they should have some target prices in mind. Once that target is done, once you when you buy a stock, you have a particular target in mind, or you have a particular percentage of return in mind. That is something you need to define when you buy a stock. And once that target is done, or you have got the return from the stock, you should plan to exit this stock. Now, Can I continue holding on to it for a longer period of time? I told you, you need to define long term. I told this in my last video also. You need to define your long term. Long term can be 1 year for some people, and for some other people it might be 10 years also. So it's better, if you don't want to create a illusionary situation, it's better that you define your long term in terms of either the return percentage or in terms of the price of the stock which you expect to achieve. And once that target is done, you can plan to come out of the stock. Another thing that you can do is, you can again do a relative analysis. When I say relative analysis, you do the comparison of the stock with other stocks belonging to the sector, and you can see how the other stocks in the same sector are performing. If you see the other stocks in the same sector are going up, then in that case, maybe you can revisit your target price. You can, like, if say for a stock I purchased at 100, I feel I'm happy getting a target price of 125, but you see the other stocks in the industry are doing a lot of upside, then maybe I will revise my target from 125 to 135. But yes, once my target of 135 is done, I should book some profits, and after that I should start looking for other cheap valuation stocks in the market. That is very important for me. Whether it's not about being a trader or an investor, for everybody it is very important to define the target prices, and once those targets are done, I got to exit the stock, because there are a hell a lot of stocks in the market, and you will always find some better deals in the market. So somewhere you got to come out of the market. Nilesh is asking me, looking at Nasdaq or Dow Jones, do you feel that market is heading for a crash? I don't know, Nilesh. I don't feel you are going to witness a market crash. I've told this thousands of times. I don't think you can witness a market crash, something similar to what happened in the month of March. So I don't exactly know what do you mean by market crash, and what exactly should be your plan for a market crash. So basically, you need to have certain points in mind. Don't take overexposure in a particular script. Don't take overexposure in a particular sector. Keep investing in small proportions when you are putting money in a particular stock. Like, let me come back to Bharti Airtel today, because I have told you to buy Bharti Airtel, and if you feel you have the capacity to buy 200 shares of Bharti Airtel, probably I would suggest that you buy 100 to 120 shares now, and then you wait and watch for a couple of days, and then you add on to it over a period of time. So you got to do staggered buying when you see a lot of volatility in the market. Now you need to understand why Dow Jones or Nasdaq is going down. That's more important for you to understand. Nasdaq is mainly having IT sector stocks listed in it. So companies like Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, these are the companies which make part of the Nasdaq. So first of all, you need to understand, just blindly saying Nasdaq is going down, that is a bad thing. So Indian markets will also go out of bullish phase. FII will stop investing in Indian equity markets. Don't talk like that. You need to understand, first you figure out what is the reason for Nasdaq to go down. The simple reason given by analysts for Nasdaq to go down is that IT sector stocks have shown a lot of upside, and now some profit booking is happening, which is always good. Profit booking in a market, or after some really good upside, some consolidation, some correction in the market is always invited, because that gives you a sense that people are booking their profits. And again, a fresh buying will come in the market. So just because profit booking is happening, some correction is happening in the market, doesn't mean that you are getting negative sentiments about the overall market. Plus, on top of that, the job data and the unemployment data was supposed to come out for US economy, which surprisingly has turned out to be good. The unemployment rate is lower than the expected by 2%, and it has fallen to 8.4%, which actually is a good news for them. And you can anytime see markets going up. Now, I don't want to discuss politics here. A lot of people understand this, that since this is the year of elections in US, so a lot of people feel that the data that is being released by US has been fudged or fabricated. Now I don't know about all that, so there's no point speculating. If they are fudging the data or fabricating the data, that is not something in my control. But if they're giving the true picture, then the numbers are looking very, very good, because in that case you can see the market reviving. In fact, on Friday also, if you would have seen, the Dow and Nasdaq both were down, but towards the end they still closed in red, but there was a lot of recovery that happened. And it's not always important that if US markets will fall, Indian markets too will fall. It's not like that. Yes, Indian markets are dependent to a large extent on the global cues, but doesn't mean there is a direct correlation between US market and Indian market. For Indian markets to be under pressure in last couple of days, one big reason for that was the GDP numbers have been very, very poor, and there are new tensions arising at Indo-China border. But again, I read an article yesterday which says that somehow the tensions between India and China are reducing. The two countries have decided to go for peace. This drama will keep happening, guys. Like I always say, because we have become so much dependent on media, we have become used to this sensationalizing of all the news, and accordingly markets react to it. And that is one reason why I tell that it's better to book your profits at every point of time, because you never know what kind of a news will come from what corner of the world, and as a result of which markets will react. So it's better that you start booking your profits. And market for a couple of days goes down, you should feel happy about it, because that creates more opportunities for you to do fresh buying. Look at it like that. It's not the end of the world. I keep telling this, markets will go up, markets will come down. That is always a part of it. You have to keep looking for opportunities in good stocks. Even if index goes to 14,000, Nifty goes to 14,000, I still bet I can give you a lot of stocks, like I'm giving in today's video also. I can give you a lot of stocks where there is a lot of upside still left, and you got to figure out those kind of stocks. If you're not comfortable doing that, watch my videos, guys. Harsh is asking me, we are taking a lot of time. I'm just in question number 8 and the video is already 30 minutes. So what I will do is maybe I'll answer 3 more questions and then I'll continue with this maybe some other day. So Harsh is asking me a question: what is the right time to average the stocks, and especially when the stock is going down and there is no valid reason for that? Harsh, so it's a good question, Harsh. My suggestion is, first of all, when I do investments for myself or for my clients, I don't believe in stop losses, because we are very confident about what we are recommending to clients. Different people have their ways of doing it. Some people suggest a stop loss at 10-15% down, but I don't believe in that, because before recommending a stock, we have done a lot of analysis on a stock. So if the stock goes down, it's better to average out or just to continue holding the same amount of shares. So my suggestion is, let's say you have purchased a stock at 100 rupees, then maybe 15 to 20% downside if you experience in a stock, that is where you should add up another 50% in the stock. And so at 100 rupees, if I had 100 shares and the stock goes down to 85, then maybe at 85 I will add up another 50 shares. That is 50% of my total exposure. From there I will still wait and watch and expect some recovery in the stock. If the recovery does not happen even at that point of time, and then I will wait for another 10% down in the stock, which makes it a total of 25% down, and maybe at 25% down I will add up another 50%. So 100 I had, 50 I added to average, maybe I will add another 50 to average out. And we set a beautiful example for this with all our clients, most of our clients in fact, where we had taken Indigo at around 1040. Lots of clients have done Indigo buying at 1040. The price started going down. My clients started asking me if we should average or we should exit the stock. I told them no, we are going to continue holding it, because I knew Indigo is going to fly. So there's another Indigo flying over here. So what we did, we waited, the stock went down to, you can see that plane behind me, yeah, that is Indigo. So we waited for the price to stabilize at some point of time, and around 9:20 is when I sent an official message to all my clients where I asked them to average out their holding. A lot of them have done the averaging. Once we did the averaging, the price came down, the average price came down around 980, and after that we did some decent profit booking once the stock has gone past 1040, 1050 levels. And after that the stock went up to as high as 1150, 1200 rupees. And from here, with unlock 4 happening, we see more upside for Indigo with more flights frequency, and also international flights starting off. Indigo will have good revenue for themselves in the coming quarters, and that is going to cause the overall prices of the stock to go up. So yes, if you feel there is no valid reason for the stock prices to go down, that is when you want to add up your quantity. And that is why I told you guys, it's very important when you start doing the buying in a particular stock, you have to first ask yourself, what is the total exposure I am comfortable taking in a particular stock? That depends on your overall value of the portfolio. You don't want more and more concentration in a particular stock. So first define what is the total quantity I would like to buy. That is when you should define the staggered buying. Staggered buying means if I feel I am comfortable buying 200 shares of Bharti Airtel, maybe I would start with 100. Go slow, guys. Add 100 shares. Look at it for a couple of days, how the price behaves, and then add up another 50, and maybe then add up another 50. Like that, you have to plan your buying. If at first go itself, I buy 200 shares of Bharti Airtel, if the upside comes, good for you. But if it doesn't come, then you lose that opportunity of doing the averaging. And even if you do averaging at that point of time, maybe you're taking too much exposure in a particular stock, which again is not recommended. Neeraj is asking me, what are the safe bets right now? Okay, so Neeraj, I feel there is one more person asking me a similar kind of a question. Nandan is also asking me, what are the long-term stocks which you recommend at current price? So Neeraj and Nandan, I am answering two of you. Bharti Airtel, I have already told you. Second will be from the banking sector. ICICI Bank is great. Bharti Infratel still looks very promising to me. Yes, Bharti Infratel has done a good upside on Friday. We made all our clients book profits on Friday, but still at its current price, again after once we booked the profits, the stock again came down. So we were very lucky with that, but at its current price, the stock looks good. Now somehow Bharti Infratel and Vodafone are looking positively correlated at this point of time, because what is the reason for that? The reason for that is Vodafone uses a lot of tower services of Bharti Infratel. So if Vodafone goes out of business, Bharti Infratel will also lose a lot of business. So based on that, the speculation is being done. If Vodafone shuts down its business, a lot of revenue loss will be there for Bharti Infratel also. But as I feel, I don't see Vodafone going out of business. In fact, one of the persons has asked me a question on Vodafone. I'm afraid if I would be able to cover it in today's video itself. Not sure on that. But whenever I get time, I will cover that. But I don't see Vodafone going out of business right now. The company is genuinely trying, and especially with Amazon and Verizon going to invest in the company, and company has also made it clear that they're planning to raise 25,000 crores through debentures and issue of equity shares and warrants. So company does not seem to be going out of business. Yes, they will be under a lot of pressure in next 10 years, and they have a lot of debt exposure also, and they're losing on their clients also. So I don't think in Vodafone you should take a lot of exposure. But at the same time, there is some profit booking should be done, guys. That's very important. Don't be very greedy. If you purchase Vodafone at around 8 rupees, then around 13.5 or 14 rupees, at least 50% profit booking should be done. And with the remaining 50%, you might continue holding it. But would this seriously run out of business? I personally don't feel so. Chances are very, very minimal for that. The government is very clear about it, that they don't want a duopoly market in India as far as telecommunication sector is concerned. And with Vodafone going out of business, it will become a competition only between Bharti Airtel and Reliance Jio, which the government has made it very clear they don't want that to happen. So obviously, government is giving its support to these telecommunication companies, and that is why they have been given a 10 years time to pay their AGR dues. And with Vodafone planning to raise funds through issue of debentures and equity shares or share warrants, and company planning to get associated with Amazon and Verizon. If these deals go through, then yes, company has good chances of survival. With Vodafone being in business, Bharti Infratel also will see an upside in the price. So for me, Bharti Infratel looks good for 260 very easily from its current price. If you have it, you can continue holding it. Even around 210, 215, it's a good buy. So Bharti Airtel, Bharti Infratel, ICICI Bank, HDFC Limited looks really good at around 1770. Mark my words, if you want to invest in HDFC Limited, it is one of the, not HDFC Bank, guys, I am talking about HDFC Limited. Even HDFC Bank is a good stock, but more than that, I prefer ICICI Bank at its current market price. But HDFC Limited is a great stock to invest in. Around 1770, you can easily look for an upside of 1900 rupees. So definitely HDFC Limited can also be added in your portfolio. Apart from that, I've told you HUL is good, ITC is good, and the other stock, as I mentioned about JK Lakshmi Cement, is good. Apart from that, Avanti Feeds is a great stock, guys. Around 510, I think the stock is trading. They posted superb numbers. We had a lot of clients invested in Avanti Feeds. We did a lot of profit booking in the last couple of weeks, but again the stock has corrected. After the results, it went up to 575, but now again it is available at 510.15, and it's a great opportunity to buy. Eicher Motor is another great stock that I feel can be purchased at its current price. So these are the stocks, guys, I would prefer to buy. Neeraj is also asking me, what about high dividend paying stocks? Again, if you are looking for high dividend paying stocks, Hero Motor and Bajaj Auto in the auto sector are good. In FMCG sector, ITC is a great stock, and in IT sector, Infosys is a great stock, and even Castrol is a high dividend paying stock. These are the companies scripts which you can buy if you're looking at making some dividend income. But I hope you know this, that dividend income is now taxable. It is no longer an exempted income in your hands. Taking up my last question, guys, Akash is asking me, what about the new SEBI guidelines? Yes, that is the talk of the town about new SEBI guidelines. So as far as new SEBI guidelines is concerned, guys, they have created a lot of modifications. They've created a lot of modifications which are creating a lot of problem for small investors in the retail segment and even for the brokerage houses, because the mechanism has to change altogether. So earlier what used to happen is that brokerage house will make you sign a power of attorney, then you have to collateralize your shares. They will keep those shares in a different demat account on which they have a control, and then an episode like Karvi has happened. So they don't want the brokerage house to have a hold on to your shares. So under the new mechanism, you will not get a collateralized benefit or margin benefits till you pledge your shares. Once you pledge your shares, you have to do it with NSDL or CDSL. And I don't know if practically you've tried doing it, but pledging is important if you want some margin to trade on. So once you pledge your shares, you will be shared a link of CDSL. You go to that link, you have to certify that I want to pledge my shares. Then they will ask you for your PAN number. You have to give your PAN number. Once you do that, then you can pledge your shares, and against your pledged shares, you will get a margin benefit. That's what is the new requirement. Plus, if you don't have, so how do you trade in shares? Either you should have cash in your portfolio as liquid cash, or you should have margin created out of your shares being pledged. If this is available, then definitely you can trade in shares. Otherwise, there are some restrictions. What are the restrictions? If you buy something today, you can't sell it on the same day because you don't have the ownership of it. Now, I am saying these things what were told on day one. So these new guidelines introduced by SEBI were supposed to be implemented from June 1. Then they decided to shift it to August 1, and finally now they have done it from September 1. Still the brokerage houses are facing problems. So again, brokerage houses have been given time till 15th of September. By that time they should be able to implement the new rules 100%. So like when you buy shares, guys, you get it the settlements done on T+2 basis. So when you buy shares, you should have enough money in your brokerage account, or you should have your margins out of your pledged shares. So similarly, when you sell shares, immediately that money cannot be used to buy some other scripts. So once you sell the share, you need to give brokerage house 2 days time to release the money in your demat account, and only then that money can be used for trading. If you're doing BTST trades, that profits what you're making cannot be used immediately for doing fresh buying. Okay, I'm giving you a rough idea, guys. Honestly speaking, even I'm not very sure how these things are being implemented right now, because when I am handling a lot of my clients, we have started getting messages where they are writing that you can do intraday trading, you can do BTST trades. Now somehow internally they are doing some adjustments, as a result of which you're still able to do these trades. Will this sustain after 15th September? As of now, I'm not sure. So if I'm speaking something wrong here, don't catch hold of me for that you are giving wrong information. Okay, I'm making it very clear, because right now even brokerage houses are not giving a clear picture about it. They need time to understand this process, and only then officially something can be said. But I'm giving you a rough idea at this point of time. So even if you want to sell shares, you need to have some margin money in your account. Now, why this weird rule? This weird rule because some people do short selling. So if you're doing short selling, exchange does not know beforehand if you're doing short selling or you're selling something out of your brokerage account. That is why they require some margin even for selling of shares. So as of now, we have a basic idea about it. So that basic idea I've shared with you, but we still have to wait and watch how things go, what will be finalized, and only then we can give you a concrete picture on this. But I've given you some basic idea as of now, and as far as I understand, this is going to mainly create pressure for people who used to depend a lot on margins for trading in shares. For others, things are going to be okay. If you always used to have enough money in your brokerage account for trading, then for you the situation is not going to change. But for others, this might pose some restrictions. So pledging is very important, guys. So you have to pledge your shares to create margin. And now if you pledge your shares, the shares will still reflect in your account. So you still have that opportunity of selling your shares even if you have pledged it. So there is nothing wrong with pledging of shares. Don't feel that if I pledge my shares, it might give unauthorized access to my shares. Nothing like that. You're just going to click onto a link created by CDSL and you are pledging your shares with them. And against that, a margin will be given to you. So things look fine from there. One last thing before I end this video is that you need to understand when you're doing equity investments. A lot of people keep asking me, what is the amount of money required for doing investments in equity? So my answer to this is very simple. You have to respect equity as an asset class, and accordingly, you have to bring good and decent amount of capital for investing in equity markets. It's not like if you're capable of investing 15 lakhs in equity and you just want to try equity markets with 1 lakh, that is a very stupid approach. You don't do that. With 1 lakhs, you will never be able to know the true potential of what returns can be generated on your capital. So it's very important. You need to define what is the maximum capital that you can put in the market for generating good returns. Don't ask me questions like what is the minimum capital requirement. There are people out there who can tell you that even with 5,000 rupees you can start investing in equity markets, but it's not like that. You need to define what is the maximum allocation that can be done for equity, and based on that you have to start investing. I am a firm believer in this. With better investments, with more investments, better returns can be generated. What is my reason for that? Reason is very simple. If you are putting more money in equity markets, then you are creating an opportunity of buying large cap stocks, quality stocks, which are expensive, but they're still underpriced and you can afford to buy them. When you come to me with a very limited capital and still expect to generate very good returns, it is not possible, because if you have a capacity, see, if you don't have a capacity to buy high value stocks because you have seriously limited capital, then it's okay. But if you have good enough capital, but you don't want to bring it in the market because you first want to try equity markets if they're meant for you or not, by bringing only 1 lakh or 1,50,000, you are creating a kind of pressure on me where I will have to recommend mid cap or small cap stocks to you. And you're never able to get that true experience of what equity markets are capable of. So when you want to get good returns from equity markets, first of all, you need to learn to respect it as an asset class, and then only you can see how beautiful this asset class is. Second is, you need to have patience. You need to give yourself time to see the magic. It's not like today I start and within a fortnight I will become a millionaire. It doesn't work like that. Don't have unrealistic expectations from the market, otherwise you will never be able to make good returns in this market. So whenever you are planning to invest, or you want to subscribe to InvestWise recommendations or advisory services, or you go to any other advisor, it's very important that you define what is the maximum capital you can put in the market and not the minimum amount of capital with which you can start, because there is nothing called minimum capital in equity. As I told you, you can start with as little as 5,000 also, but you need to define based on your income, based on your commitments, based on your savings, what is the maximum you can allocate for it. Because only when you give me a clear picture about the maximum capital that you can put in the market, I can buy some quality scripts for you. I hope the video has been useful, guys, and we will continue with the knowledge sharing part. And thanks for your love and support. We are what we are is only because of our followers and for our clients who have shown blind trust in me. Obviously, I feel blessed to have this opportunity of serving so many people out there, and I promise you I will continue with the good work, and we will do more and more research in recommending scripts to you, and we will make good returns in this market like we have been doing in the past. Till we meet again, guys, bye bye. Cheers, God bless all of you, stay bullish.